Hey friends, Editing Val here at the top of the episode. Just letting you know, when we recorded this episode, there were some technical glitches. Now, I did my best with the recording software and the editing software. You won't probably notice many of them if you listen to the audio only version. However, you will hear some garbled noise here and then. The audio quality is a little off. You'll be able to tell more in the video, I'm guessing. Hopefully it doesn't make a difference, but I did want to come on here and say that there were some issues. I did my best. If you notice them, this is not typical of the podcast, just so happens to be for this episode, but the content was still worthwhile for sharing, so enjoy the episode. You're listening to The Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are a part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. This is the Motherhood Experience podcast, and I am your host, Val. So glad to have you joining me today. Well, we are in another month with more episodes of the Motherhood Experience podcast. And today, my conversation is with a brand new mom who has a young baby at home. Now, if you're new to the podcast, I just want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to explain a little bit about what it is, this is a podcast where mothers from all walks of life, all ages and stages, share their experience, their journey, their unique and individual vision, dream, expectations for what motherhood is and has been to them. I have been given a window into the motherhood journeys of over 40 moms to date, and this episode is no different. So these motherhood stories may not be like yours at all. You may relate to them entirely, and that's one of my favorite things about hosting this is you never know what journey another mother has been on, has embarked on, and yet here we are doing the best we can, raising the children God has given us. So I hope that you'll sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with this young mom I met at the North Dakota Homeschool Convention, Mari Hoverson. Mari, how are you?
Good. I'm doing well.
I'm so glad to have you here. It's a little bit of a different story how you and I met. I don't know you at all. And when we attended the North Dakota Homeschool Convention this year, we attended one of the same seminar sessions, and you walked in and introduced yourself to me, and we struck up a conversation and just came up and were so friendly and welcoming. Are you normally an outgoing individual?
Oh, I guess I don't want to say that I am in a private way or anything, but I just like to make new friends and connections, and especially at the homeschool convention, because I like to meet new people, because hopefully I'll see them every year. But I'm not afraid to make new friends. So I guess I'd say so. I don't know.
Well, you are also new to the motherhood journey. Why don't you tell us the age of your little one and what stage of motherhood you're in?
Yes. My daughter Miriam is only 7 months old, and I'm new to motherhood. So I feel like I shouldn't be on this podcast, not to say like I need experience, but I like learning from, mothers who have been down the road and have graduated their kids. So it's funny that I'm on here sharing my story, because I feel like I just started.
Well, and that it's from all walks, mothers from all walks. I think as time goes on, we remember a lot of motherhood in the early days, but we also forget a lot of it. And so I think that you sharing your story will really resonate and be like, oh yes, I remember those days now. So I guess the first question that I would have for you is, are you sleeping at night?
Yes. It was funny because when Miriam was 2 months old, we got her to be able to sleep through the night, which was such a blessing. But now, since she's hit about 6 months, that 6-month regression that I guess is common is happening. So sometimes it's about once now that I'm up in the night, but not too long ago it was about like 3 or 2 times, which wasn't very fun. But yeah, so I even took a nap today, and usually I don't take naps. So yeah, it's been kind of different for
Yeah.
me recently.
Yeah, the change in routine takes a lot of getting used to.
Yeah.
And I actually have so many questions for you that I'm just thinking of sitting here listening to you talk a little bit
Sure.
about her. So you're in a small town, right?
Yes, so we're in Underwood, North Dakota. We're halfway between Minot and Bismarck, if anyone's
Okay.
familiar to the area.
Okay. So with her being your first child, 7 months old, being in a smaller community, are there lots of seasoned parents who are willing to jump in and help, or is it more of a seasoned parents who are willing to tell you what you should be doing?
Mm. Yeah, well, even today, because we're planning to homeschool. My husband was homeschooled, and so there's a couple of other homeschool moms that I'm friends with and we connect with, and their kids are around like 6 and under. But as far as parents in our town, everyone's involved in the school, and it's like if you're not part of the school, then you don't exist. Because we weren't from here originally. My
Mm,
husband's from Minot. We moved here because my husband was working for someone nearby at the time, and I'm from California, so that's no one really knows us still, and we've been here almost 3 years, and we're still kind of new to everyone. So there's not really anyone like jumping in because we go to Minot and see my in-laws, and they just love being with Miriam, and they take care of her if we do a date night or something. So yeah, it's kind of sleepy town here in the coal community. You don't get to see a lot of folks, but the older folks that do come and see her, they just love hanging out with her and seeing her for a short time.
right. So that brings up an interesting dynamic then with you kind of being transplanted there. You're not from there. Your family is nearby, but not next to you. Does it
Right.
ever feel isolating for you in these early days of motherhood?
Um, in the winter time, it feels
Mm.
very lonely. But I know I'm not alone. Like the homeschool convention is one of those places where it's like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of us doing this. And even though I'm not homeschooling her yet, I still get to, be like I'm part of a community. Um, I'm fine being at home because I think that's where God calls us as women to be, is in the home and being with our children. So it doesn't really matter if there's, you know, other people around me as long as I'm fulfilling my duty to be with her and make her feel safe and sound. And yes, at times, I think in the beginning, because everyone leading up to the birth is like, how are you feeling? Is it a boy or a girl? When's the due date? Everything. And then you get meals and you're just, everyone's asking all these questions. And then the baby's born. And then it's like, they want to see her maybe, but then it's like, they've moved on. And so the postpartum journey is like, uh, by yourself or with your husband, obviously, but then everyone's kind of going back to normal life and giving you space, which is good, but it's not as like everyone's crowding you, wanting to know all the same things. But yeah, it's isolating a little bit, but I'm getting used to that. And
Hmm.
I- with it being the first kid, having more kids, Lord willing, it'll be more fun and not as lonely.
Right. And that's a great segue into my question of when you met your husband, married him, was family always a goal and a plan for you?
Yes, that's kind of a loaded question because there's lots of things in my history and background and growing up. But yeah, I come from a single parent home. It's just my sister and I, and lots of things in my family that it was just me and my sister, really. We didn't really have cousins or, um, yeah, there just wasn't a big emphasis on family, I guess.
Hmm.
And if we did see family, it might have been for holidays, but it was just, yeah, very, very small. Whereas my husband is the third of six siblings, and uh, you know, they're big on grandkids, and I absolutely love that because without a dad in my life and seeing him wanting to, he knew his role as a father someday and as a husband, and so that was just really exciting to see, and investing into children spiritually, which, I didn't really have that background as well.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited to see how our family grows and how we'll be raising them as disciples of Jesus Christ. And yeah, I really wanted to have someone who was a family man. And my mom and my grandma, they didn't get to be a stay-at-home mom, and that was their dream. But
Mm,
I get to be a stay-at-home homeschooling mom and homemaker, and because that's what Chris wants too, and he knows that, and that's how he was raised. So I just thank the Lord for how he redeemed my past or my experience with family as a whole. So
right.
yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh, that's fascinating. So there's probably a lot of people wondering, like, wait a minute, Val met her at a homeschool convention, but her only child is 7 months old. What was she doing at a homeschool convention? Would you like to
Yeah.
speak to that?
Yeah. So being from California, I was public schooled, and I knew some homeschool kids and they were absolutely sweet. That was our church actually. They had homeschool kids meet at our church for a co-op, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I didn't really get to know a lot of the kids, but some of the kids that attended our church and their families were there. But then when I met Chris, who was from North Dakota, we met through Bible college there in California. He was there for a year, and he wanted to go back to North Dakota and wanted to, do his electrical work and stuff. And then as we, our relationship furthered on, meeting his family and all of his friends and just seeing homeschool families and just what the Bible says about instructing our children and the ways of the Lord. I wanted to do that too for my kids. I went to Bible college because I wanted to teach my kids about the Bible. And so I didn't really have a career mindset necessarily or anything to pursue like that because I wanted to be a wife and a mom someday. But with this homeschool thing, all of our friends were homeschooled, but I wasn't. And Titus 2 says, the older women should teach the younger women about how to be, a good wife and a good mom. So I like to go to the homeschool convention to learn, to seek wisdom. And yes, I'm not in that stage of life right now. And I even went to the homeschool convention before we were engaged
Right.
because
Wow.
that's where it really hit for me a couple years ago was like, in all the ways that uh public school, all the ways it goes back to Darwinian evolution with the segregated age groups and just the ways the dividing of the family. That's how the Satan is really trying to divide the family apart, and that's how we're seeing all these things in our culture in our world today
Mm,
because the things aren't being held sacred like they used to. um and so I just go to learn from these older moms who have been through it. And not many of people my age who or in my stage of life are doing that, but I really encourage you to. And if you're not married yet, or if you're not a mom yet and you want to be, um, do it now before you get there, because that's how we prepare to do the job that we're supposed to be doing as wives and moms. So that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I hope to continue to do. Um, and I really enjoy learning, and I might not remember every single thing, but I still get a lot of good insight and little tips here and there that I didn't hear before. So, yeah, that's why
yeah.
I go. And I'm glad I meet people like you and make these connections and hear the moms on your podcast too. That's another way that I can learn. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, that's as a homeschool mom, and I didn't even know a homeschool convention was a thing until my very first year homeschooling. Then that spring, two friends of mine were like, you should come to the homeschool convention with us. And I was like, what is that? So that was my first time hearing about it, my first experience with it. And I learned so much that helped. It was crazy how the Lord worked it out, where some sessions that I ended up sitting on were speaking exactly to the like two struggles that we were experiencing in our homeschool walk that first year.
Mhm.
And it was crazy. I had no idea what I was doing and just walked in, sat down on these sessions, and then I was like, oh my goodness.
I think probably the main thing is my husband, he grew up homeschooled. So there's a lot of families that go because we just want to hang out together. And we might not hit all the sessions because people are visiting and just catching up on life from all over the state or in South Dakota or Minnesota. And yeah, and if you are in other states, you are more than welcome to come to the North Dakota Homeschool Convention. We would love to have you guys and meet you. We have lots of it's like for a weekend if you want to experience snow. It's great. Um, but yeah, I think it's in Bismarck again this year. So you'll have
Yeah.
to look on the website for that. ndhsa.org, I think
Yeah, I
it
think you're
is.
right.
But yeah, I love the sessions. Even when I come back from lunch, I'm like, I don't want to miss a word that they're saying. We got to get back there. But yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, not knowing what to expect or what it was about or anything, and we've been going back every year since. The next year, I went with my family. I was like, we are all going to this. We're all going to reap the benefits of going, and we've made it a point to go back just about every year. So,
that's
um,
awesome.
you've mentioned a couple of times that you're from California and moved to like middle North Dakota. Was that an easy move, an easy transition? Was it hard to get used to? What was that like for you?
It was hard to get used to. Um, Luckily, the first winter that I had up here wasn't too bad. That was that was the winter of 2020. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad. And I was in Minot, so I was in a city, so it wasn't like the middle of nowhere, kind of like Underwood is. Um, but I'm just glad the housing I had, it was through a family friend connection and to stay there for free for 8 months. Um, I was roommates with a gal that was going to college there, and they were family friends of my husband's family. And so for the next 8 months before we got married eventually, I had free rent. So that was awesome.
That's
But as far
amazing.
as leaving everything, 23 years of being in California, it was hard. Um, Especially when it was cold because I'm like, I could be at the pool right now and it's snowing. So that's a bummer. But the friends and the people and the church family I had was huge. But I don't, it's interesting now because I don't really, life just moves on and I don't really connect with those people. But I know if I
Mm,
do see them again, we'll just pick up where we left off. It's, it's, I'm glad to be up here because that's where God led me. And um, yeah, it's hard to leave. I was involved in youth ministry. And so to leave those kids, because I know a lot of them, I don't know what their family situation's like. So I don't know what their faith walk is like at home. And so
mm,
for me, I felt like responsible. Like, how are they going to continue to know the Lord if I'm not there investing into them? But it's like, that's their parents' job, and it's in the
mm.
Lord's hands. They're in the Lord's hands. So that just gave me a bigger perspective. It's like, as a parent now, I'm investing in my child. So that was a hard thing to leave was because I loved all those kids and my girls, but I'm glad to be where I'm at now. And I wouldn't
Yeah,
change a thing. He prepared me for this. So yeah.
that's so fantastic. You you touched on something that I kind of want to unpack a little bit. Um,
Sure.
I can't
I don't
remember
know
what
what
it
it
is
is.
you
Oh.
I don't remember what you said, but it made me think of this in the sense that, your daughter's 7 months old now. Um,
Hmm.
when you were pregnant with her or even before, did you have certain expectations of what this early stage of motherhood would be like, and how have those lined up or not with how motherhood has been?
Mm. I didn't know what to expect. Because again, with our small family and just my sister and I kind of being with each other, we do have cousins. We just didn't really have super close relationships with them or saw them
Mm,
a lot. So I didn't know what babies were like. I wasn't raised around them at all. So I had to really at that I was asking so many moms so many questions of like, what do you do? Like, how is this all supposed to play out? I just wish they had an equation and you just, a certain formula and everyone was the same, but every kid, every pregnancy is different. Luckily it's been very good. She's such a good baby. Luckily, it was a very good pregnancy. I know it probably won't be like that for all the others, but um, yeah, I think it's been going well so far, and just being able to now we can go outside and be in the sunshine now. Um, but I'm trying to prepare for even homeschooling now so that she doesn't remember me being on my laptop making printouts and things
Mm.
or whatever that I'm trying to put together for her and the rest of her siblings. Because I know once she starts crawling, I'm done for. So,
Right.
um, but no, she's been very good, and it's much easier than I thought it would be. And we've been doing some trips with her too. We got to go back to California to see my family, and she did that. She handled that very well. We went to Seattle before that and Dallas when she was 5 weeks. Um,
Wow.
we even went to Grand Forks when she was 5 days old, 5 days
Wow.
after home birth. So I was recovering still. And we drove several hours up to Grand Forks to see Chris's great grandmother who is on hospice. So I'm glad they got to meet each other before she passed away. So luckily she was very good and all that too. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
That says a lot to you and your husband too for even being willing to travel with her so little.
yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So you mentioned
Yes.
home birth. What brought you to that decision? What was your journey to go that route?
Yeah. Um, well, a lot of our homeschool friends that Chris grew up with, a lot of them are very, natural, and when it comes to like food or natural remedies for when you're sick and things like that. And so everyone, uh, the majority of the moms did home births. And, there's a certain midwife that's here that's been doing it for, I think, over 30 or 40 years. I'm not sure. But,
Wow.
and just to know that we were designed as women to be able to do this, like there's just there I recommend the Happy Home Birth podcast if anyone's thinking about giving birth at home. And there's lots of stories that might be scary. It was funny, the day she was born, I listened to one of the episodes. It's just people giving their testimonies of
Yeah.
their birth stories. One of them, she was like, I was in labor for 36 hours and then pushing for like 7, and then I started labor that night. I thought of that. I was like, I hope it won't be like that. Luckily it was 10 hours from start to finish, thank God. But anyway, so going back, all these people had home births. And I know a mom, she has 13 kids, and she's done everything. She's done hospital, she's done home birth in bed, she's done home birth in the pool setup. So I talked to her and asked her a bunch of questions. But it's interesting how the history of how, it was just a normal thing at home. You'd get some helpers, some other women to help you, and then maybe a doctor would come by or something. But it was just a normal thing back in the, you know, 1800s and whatever. Just a lot of the things and practices that the hospital does, and the money and the cost for it, doesn't have to happen. Um, and so I thought, well, it's way cheaper, and I could just be in bed and, or relax in my own home. There's just so many things with it and studying about it. The Bradley Method of Childbirth too, if anyone is thinking of a home birth, that's a great book. It's better to do it at home, and if you can, why not, that's I think going into a hospital, for me, I always think something bad is happening to me and I need help. It's like birth should not be
Oh,
considered a bad thing. You get scared and tense, and all the bright lights and everything. It's like Jesus was born in a stable, and that's super dirty, and he was the most perfect man. So, or man, God. And so it's like it doesn't have to be a sterile, clean environment. Home is where baby should be. Um, it was just so sweet. And there are people I know who wish to have a home birth, but because of medical complications, they can't. But I encourage people to look into it. I know there's certain husbands that don't want that to happen, because they think that it's up to them. But it's like, no, if there's a midwife, there's you'll be in good hands. Our midwife,
Yeah.
I think Miriam is number 964th home birth for her. So I'm like, she knows her stuff, and just she's so peaceful in the Lord. And I'm
Wow.
like, I need you in the room for when I give birth to my baby. It'll be great.
Oh my
And it was
goodness.
great. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, that was a long
I
spiel. I talk a lot.
Well, it's clear that you are very passionate about it, and I look forward to following your story then as your family grows over the years as well. You might
Hope
help your
so.
midwife hit 1,000. Who knows?
Who
Um,
knows?
but what was the experience like when you're in your home delivering your baby? And I think now, like, uh, even when I was first pregnant and having babies, which was 14 years ago now, um, home birth had really started to make a comeback, I would say. And I hear about it far more often now than I did back then. But um, what was your experience of being in your own home, being attentive or attended to um, by just a midwife? And you mentioned calm and peaceful, I think, as you were talking about it, but was it like comfortable? Were there any points of time where you were like, am I doing the right thing? Like, what was it
Mm.
like?
Um, I knew I was doing the right thing. There was a friend of ours who, wanted a home birth, but then, uh, due to complications, she had to take it to the hospital. So there was always that in the back of our minds, especially
Mm.
for my husband because he would be the one driving. Um, but luckily that didn't have to happen. But yeah, so my water broke. I was taking a nap. It was like almost 7 o'clock at night, and so I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Our midwife is in Bottineau, which is for her. She lives in the country, so it's 3.5 hour drive for her to get here.
Wow.
And usually for the first one, it's like, oh, it'll take long. It usually longer. And so, and we called her, and the contractions kept getting closer together, and so we're like, we think you should come. And so she did. We actually had two midwives. So she's 3.5 hours. The other one was only an hour from Hanover area. And so they came around the same time, around, I want to say 1 a.m. And we had the pool set up because we were planning to do the water birth because that's
Mm.
the natural epidural, they say. But Chris was getting it all filled up. It had to be a certain temperature and everything. And then once I got into bed and checked, she's like, nope, you're going to stay right here. I think she's going to come pretty soon. So I felt bad for Chris because he did all that work. um, but I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stay here. I just, yeah, to make sure I had everything, which I did. It was funny because we had lots of weddings and like family camp leading up to the birth. And so we're like, we had everything with us in our car just in case she wanted to make her appearance not at home. So we were kind of ready for it. And she chose home. Uh, but it was good. It's a blur for me now, but being able to see her when she did come, it was so great. My cord was too short, so she couldn't nurse right away, actually.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. And but yeah, 10 hours from start to finish. I pushed for an hour and a half. Now I know how to push correctly. I don't think I was doing it quite right. But that's the beauty of home birth is the midwives, it's how you want it to be. There's no
Mm.
certain formula. It's like whatever you're most comfortable with, however positioning you want to be in, if you want to crouch down, if you want to be on the bed, if you want to squat, whatever you want to do. And then they just wait. And so they're your encouragers, which is sweet. And they help with everything afterwards. And my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law got to be here, and which was wonderful to sleep through the night that first night.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, they were rocking her, and then they'd come in when I'd have to feed her. But it was nice. I'm like, I don't have to, walk from a hospital and drive an hour home. because that would have been the case. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I could just stay in bed and go outside and, in the backyard if I want to when I was good enough. I got a little tearing, but it wasn't too bad, but I would do it all over again. She's worth it, I'm sure every mom
Of
knows that.
course. Yes, of course. And
Yeah.
I hear her little squeals in the background.
Yeah.
Is she really starting to show a unique individual personality?
Yes, I think so. When we have the mirror in front of her, it's kind of fun to she likes to we like to copy her, and then she'll laugh, and she understands that we're trying to copy her, and
Hmm.
she likes sticking her tongue out, and lately she's nodding her head yes. Um but yeah, it's fun to make her laugh. She loves when dad comes home. I feel like she's a daddy's girl already. Um but yeah, I don't know. There's lots of things about her that we love, so it's hard to list them all.
Right, right. Do you I know that you and your husband are musically inclined. Do you sing lullabies to her or sing to her throughout the day at all?
Yes, yes, we do. Sometimes when Chris gets his guitar out, we'll sing together, and she just loves the guitar. We like to sing Jesus Loves Me and the alphabet and other songs. Sometimes we make up our own songs for her, but she just has the biggest smile on her face, and her big cheeks just make it better. Um, but yeah, we like to sing to her a lot, or play music and sing. I try
Mhm.
and sing hymns to her, so that she'll, know hymns. And a couple Sundays ago, because my husband and I will help with worship ministry, we had her with us up there. Hopefully, it wasn't too distracting. Um, but she did sing a little with us, if you know what I mean. It was fun. Um, but yeah, hopefully she can. Uh, Probably will teach her how to play instruments and sing with her and do worship together as a family like that.
Yes, cute. So cute. What
Yeah.
about what about books? Have you been reading aloud to her already? Is she kind of into the whole
Oh
pages
yeah.
thing or not really yet?
Yes, I have lots of books for her. I actually got there is this cute little set of books. There's 6 board books, and the series is called Big Theology for Little Hearts. And so their board books, like, one's the gospel, the church, God, Jesus, creation, and the Holy Spirit. And so I'll read those, and I'm like, Jesus, and she'll just smile, and it explains what these certain terms are that she won't understand maybe right now, but just to get her familiar with the gospel story.
Yeah.
And I was a librarian before I had her, so books are a big deal for me. So we like to uh, I'll do pages with her, but I she likes to try and grab it too.
Right, exactly. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, yeah.
How many
So
how many paper pages has she ripped is basically what I was getting at.
none. She hasn't
Good
ripped
job,
any
Mom.
yet. Yeah,
Good
I
job.
try very hard to hold them or keep them as far away, like at a distance, so she can still see. Okay.
Yeah.
She wants
Yeah.
to eat the pages or eat the board books and start bringing them towards her mouth. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Have you started her on any solid foods yet? Yeah.
Yes, yes. We just started with mashed potatoes and the little grinder from Munchkin. Yeah, we just started on mashed potatoes, and she likes that. I just did like a frozen pear with it's like the mesh top, and you can hold it. It looks like a pacifier type deal, and you put it in the freezer so you can put like
Oh,
frozen
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fruits in
Yeah.
there, so the peel gets stuck. And so she had a pear today. Um, Gosh, what else have we done? I think that's it. Oh, and potato soup. So kind of the bland stuff, but
Yeah.
she enjoys it so far. So that's good.
Yeah. When that whole new world opens up to them with food, really it opens
Yes.
up to you as parents too, because there's things that you want your children to try and then you end up, eating them, of course, as well. And I was
Right.
with my daughter especially, I was that mom who made everything. Like, don't try to feed my baby something that you bought or something that I didn't make, and
Yes.
then we were all eating that way.
Yes. Yeah, I like making it myself because I heard that Gerber, they found, like, metal in it, so I'm like, "Oh, that's concerning," but it was already from the beginning that I would make something myself because all of our friends do it, so why spend the extra money to do
Yeah.
do that? So,
Well,
yeah.
and it sounds like you do have a pretty solid group of like Chris's friends that he's still in touch with that you have kind of integrated into. How do you foster that community as your daughter gets a little bit older and as you plan to grow your family? How do you foster that community with them?
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are spread out, like, hours apart, so it is a lot of work to, it is a lot to drive an hour, and especially if you have 6 kids, so
Mm,
but I would like, obviously staying home is important for any mom of any little person, because they're familiar with that. And if you are too busy, then they get fussy or, something's wrong. Um, they just can't sleep or they can't eat or something, they just get agitated when we are too busy. So it is hard, but, you know, that's the beauty of technology, even though it is a burden a lot of times and we get
hmm.
distracted by it. But to text or call, or I try and be good about birthdays because I had a summer birthday. So, especially being public schooled, no one really remembered. So I like to, I like to be, caring in that way to remind people of, like, "Oh, I'm thinking of you today." Um, but I would like to hopefully, get out to, see these different friends who are having kids. A lot of his friends are those that, um, yeah, they might be in our age or stage of life, but it's a lot of the veteran homeschool parents too. So I like to learn from them
Mm,
and hear from them. We just had a gardening talk too with one of them who has this massive garden, and we put her talk on YouTube. But I would go over there before I was pregnant and learn about canning and her gardening and how to, make all these things. So I'm like, I hope to bring my children into that with different people and their different fortes. But obviously, grandma's in Minot, and we'll learn from her with different things too.
yeah.
Um, but sometimes we'll get together. That's why homeschool convention, like I said, we like to visit and hang out because we don't get to do that a lot. Um, but yeah, hopefully we can make it make some trips and field trips. And that's the fun part of homeschooling, is that, we're not on a set schedule. We could do
Yeah.
whatever we want,
Right.
and learn through just life experiences. And just play outside together on the playground while moms visit, so I'm excited to do that. Tomorrow, we're actually going to a greenhouse together. And so even though Miriam can't, she won't remember anything, but her kids, her
Yes.
kids will get to see, and the gardening process and organic
Yeah.
growing. And so to do things like that, I'm excited to do that with our children someday.
Yeah. I mean, those kinds of activities are right up my alley. So I love that you're starting there. Is is Underwood, do you think, or do you know, do you have any plans at all? Is Underwood going to be kind of long term for you? Do you think you'll end up moving someday?
That's funny you say that because we're in the process of probably moving to Bismarck this fall.
Really?
My husband, yeah, because we moved here because Chris was working for someone in Washburn originally, and then that didn't work out. But my husband has his own business now, but he would like to get his master's electrical license. And in order to do that, he has to work under someone for about a year or two. And so, and yes, there's people in Minot, but the companies in Bismarck seem promising as well. And luckily, we know a lot of people and a lot of friends who are around our age who also have babies. And there's more to do. But even when we're in Bismarck, we're just like, okay, we're tired of the city. Can we just go home now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but even though it's sad to leave Underwood and we have made some connections here, we'll probably come back. And especially, I worked at the library, so I enjoy stopping in there and supporting them. And it's a good library, very good books in there. So, and it's on the way to Minot. So if we see, we could stop in on our way to Grandma and Grandpa.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know, but Bismarck is so far the plan. But the country is the ultimate goal, to be out a little ways, have a hobby farm of some sort, and so that our kids can have a work ethic of taking care of animals and just exploring with trees, hopefully, and just
Yeah.
being able to run around and do whatever they want, almost
Yeah.
whatever they want, and let their imaginations just soar. Yeah, so we'll see.
Wow. But also, I mean, with your propensity to not be afraid to meet new people, I think that in Bismarck maybe you'll find just the right community for just the right amount of time that
Yeah.
you needed. And so that will be exciting too. The experience that you had growing up, and now you're a mother, what is the legacy that you're hoping that your daughter, now your future children, will be able to share about their childhood?
I just hope they have a good childhood too. It was hard to be, my mom she did everything she could, single working mom. We were home, we were in the YMCA, we were with grandma, and it was just us two. So I would hope my
Mhm.
kids, Lord willing, God gives us however many children He wants us to have, and they'll get to make lifelong friends with their siblings, um, that they learn from mom and dad, to be set up for life. Um, but the most important thing, and first and foremost, is to have a love for the Lord, and to love His Word, to love His people, um, and a love for family, and to know what God is calling them to based on what Scripture says. To be, for our girls to be, hopefully wives and moms someday, and homemakers, and for our sons to be able to be providers, for their families, um, and to find something that they're interested in and to pursue it. Because a lot of it was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. um, and it was, for me, not having a dad, finding the Lord in that way, how He is my father. I hope for Chris,
Hmm.
he gets to hopefully, and he will do a wonderful job at this, is to reflect the heart of God, Father God, to our children. And hopefully for me too, to nurture them and love on them, and to take interest in them and delight in them. But ultimately to lead them to Christ, that they would be disciples of our Lord, to serve Him, that they would just, I don't know, there's just so many things with that. We didn't really open the Bible or pray at home when I grew up, and but sometimes
Hmm.
we would go to church, maybe. So I hope that they see the importance in those things, and not make it a separate thing on Sundays, as but that the Lord and serving Him is every day, and we get to live in His grace, we get to serve Him and be obedient to Him, and how the direction that will take you will be, uh what's that scripture? It says, I think it's Second Chronicles 7:14, you'll live long in the land. um It'll go well with you, basically.
Hmm.
I'm so glad the Lord showed me all these things before we got married, and, being introduced to Chris' family and homeschooling and home births, even, or whatever. But being a homemaker and being at home, because if I was still in California, I probably would have, I'd be working. I don't know what kind of husband or family I would be having, but it wouldn't be the way I'm
Sure.
doing it now and I'm heading towards. So, um, I'm glad I get to do that for my kids now, and that it's not too late. And it's not too late for whoever's listening if they're thinking that too. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just want them to love Jesus first and foremost. That's the biggest thing. And that
Amen.
hopefully they think that Chris and I are faithful to what God has called us to do, that we were faithful servants of Him.
Well, Mari, I so very much appreciate, first of all, you trusting ultimately a stranger that you met at the homeschool convention to strike up a conversation, and
Yeah.
then lo and behold on a podcast. But I just want to thank you for sharing your heart and your convictions, and your journey so
Yes,
far
thank you.
with with motherhood, with family, marriage, all of the things. So I hope that sharing your story blessed and encouraged you in some way too. So thank you for joining me on the podcast
Yes,
today.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook or Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.